Okay, hello everybody. I'm very excited to introduce author and teacher and Renaissance woman from the West Coast, Elise Lovejoy, and she's going to talk about Express Readers, her decodable books and resources for young children. And joining us on the interview is Teach My Kid to Read board member and school board member, amongst other talents, Tracy Young. So with that, let's begin, and thank you for joining us.
Wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. What I thought is that we could just have a couple of questions. We love your decodable books, and we would just dive right into it, Elise. Okay. So one of the things we noticed on your website is that you have a motto of every child deserves to learn to read. Mm-hmm. So what was your motivation with creating these decodables? I have a feeling it ties into that, but I'd like to hear it.
It does. You know, when I was teaching, there were two types of books. And it was either leveled readers, where I felt like the kids were just running into words again and again and again that made their confidence or their frustration level. And then there were decodable books, which at the time, I mean, I'm finding a lot more books nowadays are interesting, but at the time it was just bland. And so the kids would be so excited that they read one. They'd be so excited that they finally accomplished it. And then the second one came along, they were like, oh, all right. I'm good. So I wanted something that had funny storylines. It had characters they were interested in. In our books, Bug is on every page and he's always doing something funny. So I wrote them, and I would watch to see the kids' reaction. So I wrote a bulk of them with the kids, like watching them to see if they would giggle. And if they giggled, I kept it. If they didn't, I chucked it. Because we all know that when kids are engaged and they're interested, they're laughing. But at the same time, I wanted the books to be pure, to be decodable, to have as few words that they were going to run into as possible that were going to frustrate them or not use the phonics that they were learning at the time. Because we all know that if you use something that helps you master the skill that you are, like a practice for mastering the skill that you're learning, you master it. Whereas if you just learn a skill like phonics disconnected, there's not a connect to why we're actually learning phonics.
So for you, these decodables really were all about practicing then.
Yes. And then they were about practicing, but being able to use them in a different way. So the phonics books that I was using at the time, they were only one way. It was just to practice phonics, but you couldn't use them for character or storyline or plot or beginning, middle, end, or setting. I mean, I wanted something that had some meat to it. And so all of our books have a good storyline. They're about helping your friends. They're about, feeling good about yourself. There's something to each one of them.
Excellent, excellent. And we noticed that, in fact, they also have workbooks, and your website has wonderful activities. So talk a little bit about the fact that there are workbooks associated with it.
Well, it actually started with that idea. It didn't actually start with the books. The idea was to have these black and white readers that kids could take home. I was working in public schools, and I was working with kids that didn't have books at home. And so as a teacher, I was frustrated. And here I was making all of these copies of books. And the only things that I could find to make copies of were leveled readers. And that wasn't what I wanted. So I wanted accessible books to send home with my kids that they had practiced in school, that we talked about what was in them, and then they could take them home and they could read them to their parents. So we know literacy is a problem, and especially with adults. And so I wanted it to be books that the kids could actually read when they took them home, because we don't always know if somebody at home can read, or if they have people to read to. So maybe this way, if they could actually read it, they read it to a stuffed animal or their dog, or, it was something where they could practice it and they felt proud about it and they could take it home.
That is absolutely wonderful. And so would you say that that's one of the ways that helps to differentiate your decodables from other decodables?
Yes, I think that the actual books were secondary for me. It was meant to be used in small groups or in classes, and the teachers would take the book, the kids could manipulate the words. So let's say you were working on short A at the time, the kids would go in and they would color all the short A's with an orange crayon so that they were identifying that. They would also color all this, we call them sticky words. It's your sight words that they can't sound out at the time. So we would color all them with yellow. We'd put honey on them so they were sticky. So the children would know when they came to it, it was something that had a tricky phonics or something they hadn't learned or they'd only been introduced to. And that way the kids had the confidence to use their phonics skills on the words that weren't sticky, that, you know, so they were practicing in those books.
Absolutely.
And then they could read the colored books after.
And I think that's so valuable for parents, because I think that many parents then aren't as immersed in how children learn to read as, let's say, as you are. Mm-hmm. So this is the way. So do you have advice for parents on how to use the decodables and the workbooks?
Yeah, well, so the decodables and the workbooks were originally, honestly, made for homeschool, because I wasn't certain at the time as a teacher how to navigate the politics of schools. You know, how would I get something into a school? I got lucky. I met an incredible principal in LAUSD. She became my champion, and she introduced me to public school teachers and administrators who immediately took what I had and said, this is what we've been looking for. So that's how it started for me, and I learned how to navigate it. But it originally started with homeschool, because I thought, well, parents at home, you know, here I've got all these kids and they're going home and their parents have no idea what to do. And maybe they're making them read books that are above their level and they're frustrated, and then they're mad at their parents, and there's a whole all the layers. And I wanted it to be a fun experience, because it's exciting. When your child learns how to read, it's exciting. Their face lights up. They, you know, they giggle, they laugh. It can be a really fun moment. I watch with my 6-year-old son right now as we're doing it. We're using my books, and he's so funny with them. He looks, Mom, look what the bug is doing. Why did he do that? You know, and so we're having these funny conversations about a decodable book. Sorry, I went off topic. The advice that I would have would be, I mean, it does have to be some knowledge about decoding, about letter sounds and how to blend them together. But the easiest piece on it is to make sure that with our books, you look on the front cover and there are the sticky words. So it's the only words in the book that the child cannot sound out. So when you come to those, it's a nice, comfortable way to say, these are sticky. Don't worry. We all get stuck on them. It's about making them feel like they're showing them their success rather than focusing on the things they can't do.
Absolutely.
One thing that I do want to point out for the parents too, or anybody who's working with the books, is it is nice that everything is on the inside cover too, but you probably saw me a few minutes hold up this map, and you could print this out from your website. And I always find that these maps are invaluable to be able to see the progression and see where you are and to follow all your series along. And I think that that would be a very valuable tool for parents or teachers to have as they get their arms around the series and where their child or student is in their phonics skills.
Yeah. Well, and we have a really simple structure. I wanted to do that because I wanted it to be usable with the programs that I, as a teacher, was using.
Yes.
I knew that it needed to be something that could supplement, or I could use it to go along with the phonics. So basically our program just starts with CVC words. It starts with, consonant, vowel, consonant, short vowels, and it stays in short vowels for a while. Then we do blends with short vowels. Then we do digraphs with short vowels. And then we make the switch to long vowels. And so the kids have enough practice with all the letters that when they make that big switch, they feel a little more comfortable. I didn't like, as a teacher, when we would do the long vowel switch along with digraphs and blends. It just felt like this load for kids when I wanted them to master the letter sounds in blending first.
Okay.
And that's where the practice becomes so important, because a lot of times the way that I think of decodables are like training wheels, and that not everyone needs them on a bicycle, but when you need them, they really, really work. Telling us this is a really important point. Kids,
well, and I have to say,
practice.
As I'm going through it with my son's school district right now because they use balanced literacy, and that's a whole nother topic. But what I'm really stressing with professionals and administrators is you can talk as much as you want about shiny books and glossy things that we can give kids and rich literature that we want them to read. But at the end of the day, they have to know how to read. They can only memorize so many words, and they might be able to make it to third grade. And then they get to third grade and they are stuck because teachers don't know how to teach reading at that level. And they shouldn't have to. It is they need to know in order to help children further. But if we were doing this the right way, kids would be learning how to read by third grade. And so that was really, the pull behind this for me was I really wanted kids to learn how to read. I wanted them to read so badly. I thought some of them can even teach themselves if they have simple enough materials that they're excited about.
Yeah. And I think that there have been studies showing 5% of kids teach themselves.
Yes.
Then we have 35% of kids that really will learn to read with pretty much any reading program. They just, it clicks, it gets it. But then that leaves us with 60% of our students. These are children, 60% that need a structured program. They need to be taught how to read. It's as simple as that.
Mm-hmm. And as you say that, it's interesting to think that a lot of the literacy is at about 40%, 40 to 50%. So we are not teaching children how to read. And when you really talk about it and you start getting into the statistics, I think of myself being a teacher and looking at my 24 students and thinking they're my responsibility. I want every one of them to learn how to read. And it is so frustrating as a teacher to be given or told you have to do things in a certain way and not be able to accomplish it because they're children. They're
right.
babies.
And I think that the more that we can empower parents to, to kind of take and ensure that their children are reading. Yeah. One of the things I noticed, and this is simply, I tutor students in reading. And I had to learn a whole new vocabulary, like CVC words, and I didn't know what that meant.
Right.
Do you find that you're also teaching parents kind of what they need to know?
Yes. But I think it's a little simpler in the sense that you have one child or two or three, depending on your kids, whereas a teacher has to multitask and they have to know so much about all different kinds of things that are going on with children and what they're missing and their gaps and their phonemic awareness and what they need. But with your child, you can really watch your child and make sure that they just follow a progression of learning their letter sounds, learning that words have sounds, and that's how we show them is by having the letters, because those letters have sounds. There is a simple progression to it. Okay, now what are the sounds? With my son right now, just as a side, there's a possibility, he's dyslexic, he has apraxia, and he's autistic. And so there are a couple levels there. But what I've decided to do with him is I say all the sounds in the words, and then he puts it together. I want to minimize his frustration as much as possible so he starts seeing the result of reading. And he is proud of himself, because we all know if you are excited about something and you are proud and you feel good, you want to continue to do it. So if a child is running into all of these obstacles with their parents and they're frustrated and they're not getting it and they feel like their parents are frustrated with them, they're going to want to stop. So for us, it was, okay, how do I help him just feel good about what he's doing? So I point to all the letters and I say all the sounds, and then he hears it out loud. So like the word bug, b-a-g. What'd you hear? B-a-g. And I press, and he says, bug. Yeah. Great job, buddy. I'm so proud of you. And then he gets the idea that this is exciting, and there's a goal to it, and he gets to read the book. Now, the other piece is with our books, they're funny and they have a story. So he wants to know what happens next. Mm-hmm. So it's not just about accomplishing the words. It's about figuring out what the story is too. It's a, dual piece. It helps parents because when their kids are giggling, it makes it a little easier to read with them.
Absolutely. So it sounds like you have lots of things on the horizon. Can you share any of the fun things that are coming?
Well, I have to tell you, if I had my choice, I would just be writing the books. I would probably still be teaching. I wasn't certain that I wanted to leave the classroom, but we got a lot bigger than I could handle doing both, because I was working nights and summers, and I couldn't do both. And I chose this because I know that we do need people on the other side of it. And now I get to support teachers, and I get to be involved with classrooms. However, we are a TK through second grade foundational reading program completely. And we're going back to add reports in May. The last review that we had, we did come above Fountas and Pinal, but we did not come where I wanted to be. And part of it is that we're teachers writing curriculum. Mm-hmm. So there are things that I've had to learn about writing curriculum that just, there are things you do naturally as a teacher and forget to write them into curriculum, because of course everybody does that. Now I'm understanding that process a bit more, and how to help all teachers. So we're going back to ed reports, and I'm very excited because we have an entire phonemic awareness piece that's been woven through the whole program, and an enormous teacher platform that we're building, that's going to be super accessible and easy to use for teachers and for parents, that should be out this spring. It's going to have all kinds of resources. Whether or not you subscribe to it, there's still a ton on there that's free. I mean, hundreds of documents and PowerPoints that you can use. So yeah, there's a lot more to come. We have 56 books, decodable books, okay. But I probably have 25 or 30 on the shelf that could be published. That will come step by step. I've got 2 small kids, and we're all in a pandemic, but we'll get there.
But I think that actually there's more of a need, because with some schools being closed, with children kind of having to go be quarantined and not be able to go into class, yep. Then parents, just out of necessity, are much more involved. Mm-hmm. And they see, okay, well, what do I need to know to make sure that my child is reading the way I expect it? Yeah. So thank you.
Well, I think, I'm watching at the kindergarten gate as I'm watching at my son's school. He has 6 kids in his class right now, because in our school district, it's only the kids that are vaccinated when there's an exposure. A lot of the children that are not there are the ones that really need it. They need to be in school, and they need to be learning from their teacher. And I know that the learning loss is going to be immense. There's going to be a lot of people struggling. And I also think parents are noticing more. You're right. They're seeing, oh, wait, my son isn't reading, or my daughter isn't reading. And so I think we're going to have hopefully a lot more involvement. Although parents will be excited to go back to work at some point.
Really?
Or at work without their child there,
Right, exactly. A new definition of the work environment.
Well,
it takes bring your child to work day to a new level. Yes.
I'm good from this point on. My office is now in my bedroom, because during the pandemic, we had to shift things around. My husband's in my office, and I am where I can hear children. So it's a different world.
So the big question that I have is, can you share where people can get your decodables and worksheets?
Well, so you can go on www.expressreaders.org. And in order to buy them, we don't sell them on the big Amazon or anything like that, just because we're a small business, and that eats into it. So you do it through our website, but it's a quick turnaround, and there's a really great catalog there in order to look through it. You can also look through the books, which is fun. You can read through them digitally, so you can kind of see what you're going to get. There's also a bunch too that you can download for free, so you can try them out. Mm-hmm. With a bunch of reading comprehension pages that go along with it. So fun for parents at home.
Absolutely. Let me tell you, I was one of those parents. Okay, children, wait, you don't have homework? Don't worry. Let's sit down. We're doing worksheets.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I could do that.
I ironed while I was doing it.
Oh,
Yes,
man.
my children are in college. They still remind me of it. And they said, Mom, you really told us to, go in stride. So thank you.
Well, that's great. No, I do appreciate that part of it. I feel like there's a survival mode that's happening for me sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this program, one thing too, I said it to you, I think early on, is there's so much breadth and depth to it. So definitely, thank you for your passion and your work. And it really is nice to hear your perspective, because sometimes it's parents who started writing these books and themselves and getting trained as tutors along the way, or working with literacy specialists to follow a specific, scope and sequence. And, with you were teaching and you saw the gap, you saw you saw a need, and you went for it, and we're all appreciative of your work.
It's been 8 years of a road. I have to tell you, I did, at one point I was invited to this in Sacramento, the publishers, in order for adoption. And I thought about it. It wasn't going to happen, because you can't change your program for 7 years once you've built it. And I thought that's just not the way that teaching works. You need to modify and accommodate and help the teachers that are teaching. Anyhow, the point being is that I sat with all of these people and none of them were teachers. And it was very eye-opening, because I always looked at books and thought, a teacher definitely didn't write this. The format, the letters are small, there's no space between them. It's not easy for the kids. They're not funny, or the words, again, the words, even in a decodable book, there would be words where I thought, really? Who thought that fit there? And I'm glad now I'm seeing a lot more people who are teachers or even parents who have the knowledge behind them, but that are writing these, and it's not just, corporations who've hired out. So hopefully we'll get more of this.
Yeah.
One book at a time.
Thank you. Growing genre for sure. A lot of new series and new approaches are coming up, and that's good, because there's room for a lot of different series and resources. So this is fantastic, and I'm so glad that you're here today. And
thanks for having me.
Sure. And, I think that people will look forward to going to your website and learning more about the books, and just seeing how these resources can start to get young children off to reading on the right foot, and even having fun and laughing.
Yeah. I mean, I think both can go together. I mean, even there's no excuses about anymore about socioeconomic status or ethnicity. I mean, there are no excuses. All children can learn how to read. Absolutely. They just need to have the right teachers who know what they're doing, and the right materials and things that excite them, because even if you have something that is really well done, if it's not interesting, it's hard to get kids excited about something that they're bored doing. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a two-edged. I think all children can learn, but we do need to have fun stuff out there for them.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, thank you. And thanks everybody for watching. Take care.
Thank you.